निद्रया यस्साक्षात् कुरुते प्रबोध समये स्वात्मानमेवाद्वयं तस्मै श्री गुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्री दक्षिणामूर्तये बीजस्यान्तरिवाङ्कुरो जगदिदं प्राङ्निर्विकल्पं पुनः मायाकल्पितदेशकालकलना वैचित्रचित्रीकृतं मायावीव विजृम्भयत्यपि महायोगीव यस्वेच्छया तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः 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 सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम् यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततन्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै. So verse 55, Shri Bhagavan uvacha prajahati yada kaman sarvan parthamanogatan atmanyevatmana tushtaha sitaprajnastadochyate. So Bhagavan is defining, giving a description based on Arjuna's question regarding a wise person. And Bhagavan has given two definitions. First definition is Prajahati yada kaman sarvan manogatan. Yada sarvan kaman manogatan kaman prajahati. So when he gives up all the desires arising in the mind, that's one. He is a sita prajna. He is a wise person. That's one definition. Second definition is Atmani eva atmana tushtaha. One who is happy in himself or herself, well, and by himself. But he doesn't need any other thing to be happy, to be secure, other than himself or herself. So that's another definition. And we have seen these two definitions should be connected, even though looks that maybe two separate definitions are given, but they are interconnected. In as much as like giving up the desire and to be happy at the same time is not possible. That is not possible. And therefore, because generally we have seen when the person, when a desire arises in the mind, and then you fulfill that desire through activity, etc., through action, gains the result of an action. And then you enjoy it. So this is how it's a very common rule. And person, if he doesn't have any, he doesn't have any scope, any occasion in order to be happy in the future, well then definitely he would not survive, because person survives with the hope. At least if person may not be happy right now, but he has a hope that the situation will change, everything will not be the same. And so definitely a person will feel that tomorrow will be a better situation, and in that hope person continues life. So of course when the person gives up the desire arising in the mind, then how will he be happy? And then how he survives? Therefore, then how this Sthita Prajna or the how a wise person survives after giving up all the desires arising in the mind? That's the question. That's how we have to put now the second definition. Atmaneva Atmana Tushtaha means the person is happy with oneself, in himself or herself. Well, he is such a person who has discovered, he has tapped the source of happiness. He has tapped the source of security, which is providing him continuous happiness and continuous security, in as much as it is a swarupam. If it is a swarupam, it will constantly give. Swarupa is something, well, it will not give it up. It's like the fire, gives you the heat. It continues to give. So long as fire is there, of course. But then if fire is there, then it continuously gives you heat. Same way, the Atma is a source of happiness, because the nature of Atma is such. Atma is a source of security because Atma is timeless. And therefore, basically, well, one which is free from the time, definitely there is no question of a death, etc. No question of a vikara, etc. And definitely then that will be a permanent source. And therefore, he doesn't need any desire to to fulfill in order to be happy. And we gave an example also yesterday of a sugar crystal. Well, the sugar crystal does not require a sweetening agent in order to make it sweet, because itself is saturated. Crystal means a saturation. Any crystal, like a crystal of even a salt also, means it's a saturated with that taste of a particular taste. I see here also saturation with sweetness. So that is why it's a sugar crystal. And therefore, if it is saturated with sweetness, it cannot be sweetened further. Means basically, sugar itself doesn't want that may I have some sweetening agent in order to make me sweet. That kind of a desire. If suppose a sugar crystal has a mind, then the human mind, then definitely this kind of desire would arise. Even though it is a source of sweetness, it would feel that I should be sweet, and therefore I need a sweetening agent. Well, then definitely it is a human mind. And the same way, Atma is a source of happiness and Atma is a source of security. But not knowing, definitely he has a desire of a security and happiness through various objects. For that he performs various activity. For that, to perform activity, the driving force is a desire. If desire is not there, how will he do an action? And therefore, manogatan sarvan kaman. Well, this wise person being happy with himself, and definitely he gives up the desire of whichever arising in his mind. Now giving up the desire, etc., and that creates a problem, because definitely no wise person till today we have found that remain inactive. All are active, and all the avatars are active. Well, of course, avatara is of Ishvara, and therefore he is a Sarvagnya, and therefore he has a knowledge of Atma also, being Sarvagnya. And therefore, Ishvara is Sarvagnya means what? Who doesn't have ignorance at all. And therefore, still all the avatars are so active, so much activity, even Lord Krishna also. And other than that, all the wise people also, Vyasacharya, Shankaracharya, and many, whom definitely everyone considers as a wise person. And they perform so much action. And definitely then there must be desire. And if there is a desire, then then how we will call it a wise man? And therefore, in fact, the Lord himself, giving a definition of a wise person, and says that he is free from the desire, or he gives up the desire, whichever arising in the mind, then he is contradicting himself, telling that I am not wise, because he is performing lot of activity and he has lots of desire, and definitely he has a desire of driving a chariot for Arjuna, and he has a desire for playing a flute, everything, so many desires he has and so many activities he has. And therefore, Lord himself has to contradicting by giving a definition of Sthita Prajna. So, then we should understand it, this kind of a thing should not be there. Then, this desire means what, basically? Giving up desire means what kind of a desire? Does the desire has any division in that? Yes. That's what now we have to discuss. Yesterday we discussed up to this point. So we should find out a difference between two types of desire. And one type of desires, generally Shastra talks about giving up desire means a one type of desire. Other type of desire, well, if they are there is no problem. So your wisdom and those desires go along, no problem. And therefore our great acharyas, they were having a desire, etc. Still there is no problem, etc. Anyway, so desire means a kama, and we divide it into two types. We call it a ragas and dveshas, and those, desire basically is a kama, and that is nothing but a raga and dvesha, and those raga dveshas are of two types. And and I have told you also raga dvesha is called desire because in that there is whatever, if you have a certain liking or if you have a certain dislike, still that I want will not go. So that means that is a desire. What? I want such and such thing, right? Or I want, I want a such and such thing. I want to acquire something. I want to retain something. That's a raga. Or I want to get rid of. Or I want to avoid. That's a dvesha. So I want will remain. It may be raga or it may be a dvesha. I want is there. And therefore we call raga dvesha means desire, kama. And raga dveshas are of two types, binding and non-binding. And whenever the Shastra talks about the kama, prajahati yada kaman, means raga dveshan, prajahati means it gives up these kamas or the raga dveshas. These are the raga dveshas which are binding. Shastra always talks about, give up the kama, etc., or give up the raga dvesha, etc. Those raga dveshas only you can give up, which are binding. Actually, which are binding you cannot give up. But then you discover something and by which you can give up. That's what the problem, that's what the thing is. You cannot give up which is binding. Which is non-binding you can drop. Therefore, so Shastra says you give up desire which are binding. Binding means a bondage, then I am bound. How can I give it up? So you discover something and therefore discovering that thing, you can give it up. So that's how Shastra is interested in. Shastra is one interest. You should be free. That's all. And therefore whatever binds you, you give it up. That's what they want to say. And therefore binding desire only they should talk. So whole Shastra, maybe Purana, maybe Smritis or maybe Veda, when they give up, they say you give up this kama, etc. Then kama esha, krodha esha, etc. There also, that kama is nothing but binding raga dvesha, nothing else. So when you give up the kamas as they arise in the mind, that's a definition. Then definitely there must be a reason to give it up, or there must be something by which you are able to give it up. Otherwise giving up is not possible, being binding. And so a man who gives up the desire in his mind and who is happy in himself is called a wise person. That's how Bhagavan defined. Seems to mean that the first thing, what is the first thing? The first thing is who gives up the desire arising in his mind is a wise person. And then he says Atmaniva Atmana Tushta. And then he is happy with himself. Means first you have to give it up the desire arising in the mind. And then you discover the happiness with yourself. That is impossible. That's impossible thing. So it's impossible. And then you make it reverse. So you discover happiness within yourself and then give up the desires which are arising in the mind. So that also looks very impossible. You cannot discover yourself a happiness within yourself unless ragadveshas which are binding you give it up. Otherwise, why karma yoga is necessary? And therefore, so in order to give up desires, you have to be happy with yourself. And in order to be happy with yourself, you have to give up the desire. Then you are in a very in a flux position, unenviable position. So Puja Swami used to give, he is fond of giving one example, that mentally unbalanced man and who is advised that unless he marries, and and then he cannot be cured. And then, but no father would give him a daughter, knowing that this fellow is a mad. So unless he gets cured, the father would not marry his daughter to him, and unless someone marries to him, he cannot be cured, and therefore this is a situation. So what is to be done? Well, whatever they have done there, we are not bothered. But here, for us, Acharya has found out a solution. Acharya has found out, and Bhashyakara tells this. What Bhashyakara says is that first he creates a problem. Bhashyakara created a problem first. He is saying that a person who gives up a desire, he is like a madman. He says that because the source is basically desire. In order to be happy, that's a common thing. There is a desire, and then there is definitely there is an action, and you fulfill your desire through the action. You get a result, desire result, and you enjoy. So that's a common thing. So just giving up the desire, and in order to be happy, is like a madman. So how can he be happy person? By giving up the desire. So then he gives a solution. He says, a man who is happy in himself by his own awakening to himself, does not need any desire to be fulfilled in order to be happy. But Swamiji, how that ragadvesha, without, if there are binding ragadveshas in the mind, then how can you discover yourself that you are happiness? You said very well. We remember that you can gain jnana only when you get qualified. And when you get qualified, when this binding ragadveshas will go, then if they don't go, how will you discover happiness within yourself? How will you know yourself, which is happiness, fullness? How will you know? That's not possible. And just by saying that you know yourself as a full, your nature, you awaken to yourself that you are definitely a fullness, and then giving up the binding desire. That also doesn't seem to be alright. That is how Karma Yoga is essential. Karma Yoga basically connecting to Ishvara through your actions and through your karma phala, you basically become free from the hold of ragadvesha. Otherwise it is impossible. It's impossible. Because both are interdependent. And you cannot give up desire. It is impossible. Without discovering that you are full and complete, you are happiness, you cannot give it up. And you cannot, know yourself unless you are qualified, unless you definitely become free from the hold of ragadvesha. Then what is to be done? That is how Karma Yoga is given. So at least you become free from the hold of ragadvesha. Anyway, and then you discover that you are fullness, and then definitely whatever now arises in your mind, any desire which are binding desire, of course, you give it up because you don't need. Binding desire means for fulfillment, when you fulfill those desires, then only you feel secure, you feel happy. Now you don't need, because you have tapped the source, which is just the nature. By nature you are happiness, and you are secure. So what kind of desires are referred here? Only those desires, what kind of desires referred in this verse is only those desires whose fulfillment is meant to make the person happy, and not those desires that are non-binding. Non-binding desires you can have as many as you want. And binding desires are only talked here. Prajahati means give up, means binding desires. Because he doesn't need. They don't. In fact, those desires no more remain binding for that person. Partially itself the bondage has gone already before knowledge. Partially only the bondage has, the hold which generally an ignorant person, the ragadveshas, they are generally very powerful in an ignorant person. And they compel those ragadveshas in order to get fulfilled. And then the person feels secure and happy. Now through Karma Yoga, he has, partially become free from such kind of a compulsion of a ragadvesha. And then he discovers he is full and complete. And then now those kind of ragadveshas, well, whose fulfillment is generally required, well, for jnani it is not required. That's how this wise person is the one who can give up those binding desires or ragadveshas arising in the mind. That's what has been told. And this non-binding desire, etc., is may include what kind of a desire? Well, like a person who is now a wise, for in him also there are these desires which are non-binding now. That includes a desire to do, to write, to teach, etc., to give. I mean, all. He is doing a lot of activity, and thousands of activities all jnanis are doing. And behind each activity there is a desire. And therefore thousands of desires are there. Yet none compels, no desire compels this person, this jnani, in order to be fulfilled. That is not required, because he is independent for the happiness and security. And therefore, only binding desires are being considered here and not non-binding desires. So, if a wise person gives up desire, what would happen to, where we will place the Shankaracharya ji, where we will place this Krishna, where we will place this Vyasacharya ji, very, very difficult. They have done a tremendous activity, and behind every activity they were having desires. So a wise person gives up desire, means these people, Vyasacharya ji, Shri Krishna, and even our Shankaracharya ji, all will be considered otherwise, because they were having lots of desires. So we have divided into two. Now the desires which are arising in the mind of a wise person, they are non-binding. Even if they are not fulfilled, you can see that. You can see in their life. If you read a biography, definitely they will not have autobiography. Your biography you will find. You will find them that any desire they arise in mind, and they put into an action in order to even get fulfilled also. But suppose if that is not fulfilled, they are not perturbed with that. Whereas the ignorant person is one whose desire is not fulfilled. Definitely he would not remain silent. Definitely he will feel disturbed. And if it gets fulfilled, there is going to be elation. If it is not fulfilled, he will feel sorrow, etc., etc. So these people are free from that. So these are the lakshanas you can see. They don't, this harsha and shoka, elation and sorrow, etc., you won't find whether the desire is fulfilled or not fulfilled. That's why it is non-binding. And therefore, even though they have lots of desires, but still they are all non-binding, and therefore this jnanis can have any number of desires. In fact, Pujya Swami is to tell one should have a desire. If you are a human being, basically one should have a desire. And because desire is one which makes the difference between other living beings and human being. No, Swami, that's not correct. They also have a desire to eat and desire to drink and this and that, and desire to move around, and that's there just to sustain their life. That's a programmed. That is the programming. It should have that kind of desire should have, otherwise they will not be active, and then they will die. So desire to eat, desire to drink, etc., desire to move around for the food, if that is not there, how will they survive? So it is inbuilt. It is a programming. And therefore that kind of a desire we are not talking about, just to sustain, etc. We have a desire by which you can see the progress. We are meeting right now, you may be 1,000 kilometers away. It's a fulfillment of somebody's desire. A computer is a fulfillment of somebody's desire. And this Zoom program is also a fulfillment of desire. Anything in this creation, right now, all this, human creation, basically is from the desire. And so desire is a vibhuti. So never think that way, that desire means something. Desire in Gujarat, in the buses they used to write that desire is a mother of all the problems. Desire is a mother of all the problems. In that buses, then the backside they used to write like that. That's the wrong thing. Desire is not a mother of all the problems. Desire is a mother of all the facilities you and me are enjoying right now. So basically non-binding. That's all. We should have a clarity regarding this. Otherwise, in modern commentaries on this verse has created a havoc. Giving up the desire is a wise person. One who has given up the desire is a wise person, and you can, if you think, you will find it is totally impractical thing. And then in your list, no wise person would be there. No wise person. Because all wise people have, including Bhagavan, everyone has so many desires, and they have fulfilled also, they have not fulfilled, etc. Everything is there. They have performed so many actions for fulfillment of the desire. Everything is there, and still they are wise. And therefore, and the definition of such wise person is given by the Bhagavan himself, who has thousands of desires. He is starting from playing the flute and all these things, and therefore. So this modern commentary's contribution on this verse has created big confusion. Anyway, so now we have understood non-binding desires will remain. And in fact, they have more desires. Honestly speaking, if you identify, once you come out of the identification of this one body, mind, sense complex, and you identify with all body, mind, sense complex, then you feel pain and you have a lot of compassion. I'm going to talk about it. You have so much compassion and love and concern for others that you have a desire to do something for them. That's how they have done. The contribution by acharyas, all is because of this compassion. And the compassion is there. And so we should say one thing now. Desire can arise out of fullness, and desire can arise out of a sense of limitation also. A desire which is arising out of sense of limitation is a binding desire, naturally, because he is feeling a sense of lack. So he wants to fulfill the lack. He wants to get rid of that lack and therefore so that is discomfort. So he wants to get rid of it, and therefore he is compelled to fulfill that desire. So it's a bondage. But desire can arise out of fullness, and so all the jnanis have a desire. They are arising out of fullness, because the fullness is, we are going to talk, fullness is going to get expressed in terms of this compassion, love, sympathy and all. And definitely, in order to be compassionate, sympathetic, loving, you have a certain desire, and you put into action also. That means your sympathy only gets expressed. So these are all non-binding desires, of course, non-binding. So, and Bhagavan, but from where you have brought this concept of binding and non-binding and all that? It's a Puja Swamiji's concept, but Puja Swamiji also has brought this idea from the Bhagavad Gita only. In the 3rd chapter you find, there are several verses. Bhagavan says, a wise person is not bound by his or her desires, and he is not subject to any kind of a mandate. And if you see this, Name parthasti kartavyam trishu lokeshu kinchana nanavaptam avaptavyam varta evacha karmani. And elsewhere also, yastvatmariti revasyat atmatruptascha manavah atmani eva atmana tushtah tasya karyam na vidyate. Same definition of Siddha Prajna, Bhagavan talks there also in the 3rd chapter while talking about Karma Yoga. Naiva tasya krutenarthaha na kruteneha kasyana na chasya sarva bhuteshu kashidartha vyapashrayah. Bhagavan says, a wise person is not bound by his desire, his or her desire. And I'm just giving you the verses, the verse 17, 18, verse 20, to all this if you refer, and you will find that Bhagavan has talked about a non-binding desire regarding and with respect to jnanis. Atmani eva atmana tushta. There itself Bhagavan has also told that. So, and he is not subject to any kind of a mandate also. I mean, he has to follow this. He has to do this, etc. It is not required for him. Desires are only binding if you take yourself to be a doer. Definitely. If you are a doer, you will have a mandate. If you are a doer, then desires, whatever arising in your mind, will be a binding desire. and then only you require to do certain things. Only then there will be, going away even from the duties, etc. All these things will be possible when you have doership. That's how Bhagavan has told all this. Tasya karyam na vidyate, naiva tasya krutenarthaha, na kruteneha kashana, krutam akrutam, something to be done, akrutam, something not to be done, vidhi nisheda, etc. Naiva tasya krutenarthaha. For this, even Bhagavan says, for Jnani also this is not there. For me it is also not there. That is all, that he says later. But for Jnani also it is not there. Why? Because Atmani evacha santushta. He has told already, Atmani eva santushta. Here in this section he says Atmani eva atmana tushta. Same thing. So basically the doership is one which basically binds. That we have talked also. The doership is the one which binds. If doership is not there and the desires arise in your mind, definitely they don't bind you. And how the doership goes? Well, better you know yourself that you are a karta, you are not doer. And then, then there is no question of and the self being so, then there is no doership and nothing to be done. Naiva tasya krutenartha, na tasya karyam vidyate. Karyam, kartavyam, and karaniyam. Well, something is to be done. No, it won't be there because he is free from the doership. And Jnani also is free from the doership, and therefore, basically, even lots of desire arising in mind, they are not binding. So Bhagavan says to Arjuna that because he had no desires, in chapter 3, he had nothing to do. And why? Because Bhagavan says, Nanavaptam avaptavyam. Avaptam, na anavaptam avaptam. Avaptavyam. Arthat, there is nothing in this creation which I haven't got, which I have not attained. Means the whole creation is me. Krishna is the creation and creation is a Krishna. And therefore, basically, there is nothing to be accomplished for. And therefore, there is nothing to be done. Then you must be inactive. No. Varta evacha karmani. Varte, aham varte. I all the time, karmani. I all the time remain engaged in action. Means what? If he has accomplished everything and still he is active very much, means still there are desires in his mind, because activity is possible only when the desire is there, and he is accomplished person and fulfilled person, then still the desire arises from what then? Desire arises from fullness. Those are non-binding. Bhagavan says there is nothing which I have to accomplish. Means I need not fulfill any desire, and still you see me all the time engaged in action. Means I have some desires, they are non-binding. This is how Pujya Swamiji has arrived at binding, non-binding desire, and that is very, very essential to know. Otherwise, this creates a confusion, and you will find it is impractical to give up the desire. So if activities are definitely non-binding, whether I do, whether I not do, Bhagavan says it doesn't make any difference to me. Still I am of course remain engaged. But so if activities are non-binding, then the prompting factor for the activity, that is kama, desire, etc. also is non-binding. And so non-binding desire of course is not a topic of course of the Bhagavad Gita. Binding desire is a topic because Bhagavan wants to make the person free, or Shastra wants to make the person free, and therefore whatever is creating a bondage, they always talk about it in order to become free from that. So only binding desires are the topic. Binding ragadveshas, now you can drop the binding desire. The desire, in the word desire itself you can drop, honestly. You can keep this word ragadveshas. And what is raga I have already defined you, and what is dvesha. Something I want to acquire, and what I have acquired I want to retain is raga. Something I want to avoid, and suppose it has come to my life, then I want to get rid of, that is dvesha. So I want to either get rid of, or I want to acquire or retain, etc. Means I want is there, so it is desire. And now here yada tada we have to see, yada goes with both. Yada atmaniva atmana tushta. That is also there. And yada goes with this also. Yada prajahati. Means what? Yada sarvan kaman manogatan prajahati. Yada atmaniva atmana tushta. Well, both the when is the force of the when. Yada means when. Goes with both the definition. And tada sthita prajnaha uchyate. Then this person will be called a sthita prajna. Means when a person gives up the desire as they arise and being happy with himself and herself, only then, tada, he can be called sthita prajna. So the force of when, is same in both the definitions or in both the conditions for a sthita prajna. So atmani eva atmana tushtaha. Tushtaha means basically don't take, tushtaha means santushtaha. Don't just take, means he is happy. You should say it implies security also. And so because both goes together, I think yesterday I told you, if I am insecure, I cannot be happy. And whenever I am happy, for those moments at least, I don't feel insecurity. And so tushtaha is equal to, looks like, tushtatu is there. And this is past passive participle, tushtaha, satisfied, means happy. Well, you should also consider secure also. So basically, the person who is secure with himself or herself, or person who is happy with himself or herself, gives up their desires naturally. Please understand, naturally. This is naturally. He gives up. In fact, to be honest with you, once they gain a nishtha, then these desires won't arise. And as I told you, even if they arise due to habit, remember the word I have told you, that vasana. Now the smell continues, right? The object has gone. Onion is not there. But then smell continues in that container. Like that. It may happen that habitually he may look upon some object, especially an object of food, let's say. Because for him, generally he, what is the difference between an ignorant and jnani? For an ignorant person, there are 5 types of objects. 5 types of objects of happiness. And for jnani, for people who are in this path, and basically sannyasis, and for them there is only one object of happiness, and that is food. And that is, so I'm just joking. I'm telling you that habitually, because in the state of ignorance, he was looking those things as an object of happiness, certain dish, etc., whatever. So it may arise in his mind that this is an object of happiness, but it just goes away. It just goes away. Honestly, it doesn't remain there. So prajahati, it has been told as if, these words we have to understand properly. He gives up as if on his part there is a lot of effort now to remove the binding desire. And when it goes, he feels relaxed. Then he is not a wise man. He is not a wise man. He is otherwise. So, just being that since he is aware of himself that he is full, and since he is aware of that he is timeless, since he is aware of that he is the very adhishthanam of the time, very adhishthanam of the entire creation, just being aware of that reality, this desire, even if they arise out of habitual error, etc., it just goes away. Don't think this prajahati means gives up, and therefore there is a lot of effort. Effort will be there on the part of our ignorant person, definitely. And that's what we were discussing while we started this section. Whatever is natural for the wise man will be a sadhana, means, right, for the person who wants to be wise. And therefore, on his part, definitely, he has to put effort in order to give up the desire, by just reminding himself all the time that the source of security and source of happiness is nothing but oneself. How can you say, Swamiji, I am the source of happiness? Suppose I am not jnani. And now you have told me that you have to give up that desire. And it is binding ragadvesha and this and that. And so how will I give up? How will I give up? We have already talked in Tattvabodha. If you remember, plus please refer. Don't keep all these pages on those. So please refer. We have already discussed that There is, no object we can call it as a happiness. No time we can call it as a happiness. No space, no place. Space, so kya? No place we can call it as a happiness. So remind yourself and become relatively free. You will become relatively free. Don't think that you will become wise very next day. It is not going to happen unless the knowledge dawns in you. It is not going to happen. All the time in Gnani itself, why I am talking all this, people sometimes feel that we listen everything Swamiji, but it all remains theory. It is not theory. You are basically getting frustrated with certain things arising in the mind. But there is no ideal mind, very first thing. Second thing is, these things are going to arise in the mind. And it has been discussed that even for Gnani also this may arise. See, prajahati yada kaman manogatan. When such a binding desire arises in the mind of a Gnani, he gives it up. That's what the definition is. Means it may happen that in Gnani's mind also this kind of a thing out of that habit may arise. Then we are Ajnani. And therefore don't think that from tomorrow I will not have any kind of a, I will not look up to anything as a source of happiness and security. That's not going to happen. So basically, if one wants to become a wise person, one has to start practicing by understanding that no object, place or condition or no time, we can call it as a happiness, and thereby time cannot be Swamiji happiness. Definitely time is a happiness. Everyone waits for a birthday, and therefore birthday is what? That is it a place? It is a time. And or marriage anniversary, whatever it may be, I don't know what could be the source of happiness in terms of time. Different things are there, whatever it is. But so this is a means for when and you employ this means and getting free from the hold of these so-called objects of happiness and security, or hold of your own raga dvesha, which are binding desires. Well, and then you find, the Shastra makes sense for me. I mean, I also can be a wise person, like the discussion in the second chapter. So this is how, whatever the mind is there, we have to accept. Whatever is there, ultimately, we have to accept. And there should not be any kind of a, conflict with the mind. It is not going to help. The conflict with the mind in which you are going to be defeated, ultimately. Because it is so subtle, and that things keep on arising out of vasanas, our old vasanas. And therefore accept it, that this thing will arise, I will neutralize, it will arise, it will neutralize, and then ultimately they will remain neutralized. What they? Ragadvesha. And so Krishna, so here it has been told, Tushta. So here we say, a person who is secure or happy with himself or herself gives up such desire. Anyway, so what else can be said now? Of course, one who is happy with oneself, Atmaneva Atmanatushtaha, is a wise person who can totally accept the self, because the self is acceptable. Self is acceptable. For Ajnani, not knowing the self does not remain acceptable, because the non-self, he takes it as a self. And therefore, now the struggle starts. In non-self, if you take it as a self, then how can you accept? It will automatically, you will not accept. And because actually the self is acceptable, because the self is limitless. And therefore, if you know that you are limitless, well, you are with yourself. What else do you need? But you something non-self which is limited, you take it as a self, and that is not your nature as such, then you will have a struggle to give it up. And you are able to give it up in a deep sleep state, and so you feel relaxed. And in a waking state, when you get a moment of joy, then you for a moment your real nature pops up. Anyway, so the self is perfect, of course, and that's how it is acceptable for this person. It is not imperfect. And so perfection means, don't think anything else. There is no sense of imperfection centered on the self. There is no sense of imperfection centered on the self. There is imperfection in non-self, but there is no sense of imperfection in the self, and that he is aware of. He'll say, he in his I, in his, not this eye, in the knowledge, in his eye of knowledge, well, definitely he thinks, he knows very well, he is established, of course, that he is full and complete. And so the self is free from any sense of imperfection, and the whole creation, the universe also, is non-separate from the self. So he says he is whole. He has a sense of wholeness with centered on self. We have a sense of division centered on self. And he has a sense of wholeness. That's how they call akhandakara vritti. Akhandakara vritti. Na khandaha vidyate yasmin saha khandaha. Means for him there is no khanda. Means I and you, I and he, I and she, I and the world, I and Ishvara. All khanda, division. For him that khanda is not there. That's all. He says everything is one. Jeev, Jagat and Ishvara, everything is ultimately one whole. Like our dream creation. The dreamer only is in the form of dream creation. Whole dream world. Even so-called Ishvara in the dream creation. Suppose the dreamer creates Ishvara also. Yeah, dreamer creates dream world, Jagat. Dreamer creates Ishvara. Dreamer creates all the jivas also in the dream creation. Everything. But everything is one whole. One whole. That is just a dreamer. All the things are there. Jeev, Jagat and Ishvara are there. They all different names and forms. Different jivas with different bodies and etc. And then, well, definitely, and then whether other objects, all inert objects called mountains and everything, ocean and this and that. That also is there. That those names and forms are also there. And suppose Ishvara, in some form, as a creator, etc., in some form, Vishnu or something, everything he creates. And yet, well, everything is he alone. That is how it is. Everything is he alone, because all are non-separate from the dreamer. All are non-separate from the dreamer. And therefore, basically, same way here, in waking state also, this person knows that even though looks different, but all is one thing alone. And therefore, there is a self, and so he has a sense of purnatva. Self is complete. Self is complete. Like dreamer is complete. There is nothing other than the dreamer. Same way there is nothing other than the self. And therefore it cannot be improved upon. Like just as the sweetness of sugar cannot be improved upon, so the fullness of Atma cannot be improved upon, and therefore Atmani eva Atmana tushtaha. So the person is happy, being awake to himself, being aware of his true nature, he is happy and secure. Tushtaha. So this is a lakshana, the definition, of course, of a wise person. And to be wise, of course, you require only wisdom, nothing else. And therefore, here, kim prabhasheta, kim vrajeta, kim asita, etc., etc. How does he, walk, and how does he talk, and how does he sit, etc. It means nothing. Because you feel, in order to, to be called wise, you are not wise, suppose, but if you want to be called as a wise person, these three things you can practice very well. You can walk slowly from today. You can talk very slowly from today. Or you can sit in a very comfortable, you should not sit suddenly. If you sit suddenly, you are otherwise. And therefore, if you practice, even without undergoing this kind of a jnana yoga, etc., and shravanam, mananam, nididhyasanam, you in the people's eye, you will become wise. So actually it doesn't make any sense, all this walking, talking. How does he talk? How he talks fast or he talks slow? He walks fast or he walks slow, or he sits suddenly or he sits quietly, whatever is there, depending upon his physical condition. But don't think, the person may be having a lot of pain in the, in the spine, etc. Then he sits slowly. Don't think that he is a wise person. So, anyway. So, then only wisdom makes you wise. Just as, so what should I do in order to be a sthita prajna, in order to be a wise person? Gain wisdom, that's all. Like, what should I do to make the friends? Just being friendly. Just being friendly well, you will make friends. So this is how it is. If you want to be a wise person, gain wisdom. That's all. Gaining wisdom, you are wise. Not by sitting in a certain way and slowly, etc. One can become wise. There is no other way. Just similarly, some people, ask how can they develop love? Well, all that is to be done is to love. Well, what else can you do? So, because you cannot discover love outside of love. And therefore, if you want to discover more love, well, within yourself, be loving. That's all. So, create conditions that will help you to manifest your love. That is required. And so, you should be at least be awareful that you should not create conditions that are inimical to the discovery of love or to the expression of the love. So people generally often create themselves, create in themselves certain conditions, knowingly or unknowingly, which are inimical to the discovery of love. So if you avoid doing this, definitely you will find that you are loving. And if you remember, now we talked on the verse 53, that love is nothing but an expression of fullness and ananda. So just as our muffins and breads and rolls are just a modification of a wheat, same way love is nothing but a modification of fullness. Modification means just a manifestation of your fullness. It's a simple emotion which is a modification or manifestation of ananda. And so you analyze love, you will find nothing but ananda. So the manifest form of ananda or the fullness is love, and love itself then turns into certain natural qualities. That's called sympathy, compassion, and giving, and depending upon the situation. And when the same love is distorted in any way, it becomes a kama, leading to krodha, etc., negative emotions, greed, anger, all this. Our shadripu are nothing but a distorted form of a love. And therefore, this is, there are nothing but one expression of ananda, either in form of love, and the love definitely gets expressed either as a good emotions or even bad emotions. Or love, people call love is Ishvara. That's fine, because Ishvara is fullness. That's how Jnani discovers himself as nothing but he has a oneness with Ishvara, and that is fullness. So the express form of this ananda is Ishvara. So what is Ishvara if you ask? Well, it is the answer. The essential form of Ishvara or Bhagavan is nothing but Sachidananda, and then expressed form of that Ananda is Ishvara. Essential form is your nature. Your nature is Ananda, and then expressed form of that Ananda or Ishvara is love. And that's how you find all the time Ishvara, who is Ananda Sarupa, in the form of love, and that Krishna is an embodiment of love. Like Rama is an embodiment of Dharma, Krishna is an embodiment of love, showing that Krishna is nothing but Ananda, and that is expressed as a love. So sympathy and compassion are example of a positive modification of a love, positive manifestation of love. Because this modification comes, then you may feel a little, so manifestation. And negative manifestations are anger, greed, jealousy, etc. But what is there is Ananda, expressed or unexpressed. Everything has come from Ananda, basically. That's how we say, Ananda deva khalvimani bhutani jayante, anandena jatani jivanti, anandam prayanti abhisambhishanti. Everything has come from Ishvara, but Ishvara is what? Ananda. So everything is born of Ananda, everything is sustained by Ananda, everything goes back to the Ananda. Everything is created from Ishvara, everything is sustained by Ishvara, everything goes back to Ishvara. Well, but Ishvara means Ananda. Everything comes from that. And everything is manifestation of Ananda. But the manifestation sometimes, in a distorted form. Then you find this kind of emotion, negative emotion. And manifestation, not distorted, then you will find in the form of sympathy, caring, and loving, giving, all this. Forgiving, all virtues you can take one by one. You can take any virtue. It is connected to ultimately love. And love is connected to Ananda. That is, and we have discussed this. In an example also we have taken. Well, when I don't feel any kind of a lack, well then definitely giving is my as though second nature. Because I am satisfied with myself. Because of any reason, maybe your desire might have fulfilled. You may not have got this kind of knowledge, but any time when you don't feel a lack within yourself, you find yourself full, or you find yourself happy. The forgiveness is natural, sympathy is natural, loving is natural, giving is natural. When you find such, of course, momentary for an ignorant person, but then definitely these things are expressed. So unexpressed, love is my inherent nature, that is ananda, and then fullness, and when it expressed, that is love. And love also, as I told you, distorted form or a proper form. So Sthitaprajna is one who discovers this ananda in him or her, and person knows that there is nothing other than oneself. Definitely. I am the whole. That is what the fullness is. Fullness means this kind of a thing. I am the whole. If for any person, whenever he is happy, he is experiencing the wholeness. That's all it means. Because that's your nature. And therefore it is not to be created. Wholeness can never be created. Therefore wholeness must be there. And therefore one should experience then if it is there. Yeah, I experience. But in certain moment of joy. Other time it remains veiled because of ignorance. For a wise person, well, that veiling is gone. I mean, the ignorance is gone. And so he is all the time aware of himself that he is whole, he is fullness. And for them, then giving up such desire, binding desire, etc., is easy. Or let's say that is his nature. It automatically, it arises, of course, because of the habitual error, but it goes. There is no effort involved on his part. So, person he knows that he is whole, he is fullness, and so the person is basically himself or herself, the fulfillment of all desires. And now we will proceed how the discovery of oneself and the fulfillment of desire are non-separate but identical. We will see that from verse 56. We will see tomorrow. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.